Can we talk for just a second about Toto not remembering what it's like to
man.
maybe win a race and immediately getting on the radio while George is going into a braking zone? George, you can win this thing. You can win this.
You can win this, George. George, you can win this. And the response from George Russell was perfect. Was let me effing drive. Perfect. Mwah. It's like a son who's finally old enough to tell his dad to shut the F up. It's like, just let me do this, man. Just let me do this. Oscar Piastri came home P2, so McLaren did salvage some good points, followed by Carlos Sainz in P3. What was George's quote on the radio afterwards? Wasn't it like, yippee, yabba dabba doo?
Yabba dabba doo.
He
added to the list.
He literally said, yabba dabba doo, a la Fred Flintstone. George Russell, ladies and gentlemen, you'll never find a more British man than him. Speaking of getting the party started.
For the victory lap, though. They ain't never seen nothing like this before. Lit the room when I came through the front door. Ask me if I should overcome, what for? Train on the trees, please walk my sycamore. Touch burning sands, cross lands and stormy shore seasons in the year, yeah. Switch gears, with keeping haters in the rear. After blood, sweat, and tears, and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear. It's a day, we break through. 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 It's a day, we break through.
It's that time of the week again. Time for everybody's favorite podcast covering exclusively Formula One and American football. I feel like I have to say that now with both Copa America and the Euros going on. It is episode 38 of the Gridiron Podcast, the Jason Bay episode of the Gridiron Podcast, which is very appropriate, Nick, because today we are recording on July 1st. Conveniently, Jason Bay, grown up in British Columbia, where our co-host Katie Caldwell is from, although she's not joining us tonight because it is Canada Day, and we got to give the Canadian Queen off on Canada Day. So happy Canada Day, everybody. It's the Jason Bay Podcast. Episode number 38, Gridiron Podcast. Nick Shook, holding down the fort in Cleveland. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm thinking about other great 38s, and I struggle to think of one. You know, I got after you for Sean Alexander last week, which I thought we just passed over his all-pro career. I mean, his run of success wasn't, sustained as long as Hall of Famers, but
correct.
I mean, the man had a nice little few-year run there in Seattle. I can't think of 38 stretch. Yeah, he did. I mean, he's no Corey Dillon, but I'm just kidding. 38. Is Ramondre Stevenson 38? I think so. I don't know. I got nothing, man.
The 30s are awkward times because if you're not a running,
he is 38.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, it's episode 38 of the Gridiron Podcast. The NFL is still in its off-season deep sleep. Only a couple weeks to go until training camp, which is when it really picks up. But until then, we are deep into the Formula One season. We're in the European calendar at the moment, and we are in the middle of a triple header, or just came off the middle race of a triple header. We were in Austria this past week, Nick. A sprint weekend. What'd you think of the sprint?
Well, Sean, I think you and I both. Well, actually, I think you're more ardent in this stance than I am when it concerns the sprint, because I like racing in general, but a 6 a.m. Eastern sprint. Let's just say I woke up and I was like, cool, I woke up in time for quali, and then I was like, now we get the sprint, and then I looked at the calendar and was like, oh, the sprint was 3 hours ago. A little too early for me, and I ran out of time to watch the replay. So this might be an admission of a lack of due diligence and preparation on my part, but do sprint races really end up mattering that much in the grand scheme of things? No. So, Sean, you boycotted it. I just didn't have the time to watch it.
I've come to the conclusion that if you're trying to keep my attention, a sprint isn't going to get it done, especially when it's at 6 a.m. Now, I will go back. I'll record the Grand Prix and I will watch them back in their entirety just to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm not going to do that for a 17-lap sprint. I'm sorry. I don't want to do it.
It's cool. It's fun. It's entertaining.
Is it? Is it fun? Is it entertaining?
Yeah, it's racing, Sean. We love racing. That's why we do this podcast. And if you're my buddy,
it feels like a watered down. Like I feel like just get on with. if you want to award points, fine. Award points for pole. Award points for qualifying. Like award those little points for that. The sprint race doesn't give it to me.
Okay, that's fine. It puts more eyeballs on the screen, and it does do it for me if I tune in for it. And to the chat real quick, because my good friend Kadeem, who works down at Tulane, is content farming right now and said, talk any and everything Tyjae Spears, who's a running back for the Titans, former Tulane star. I love Tyjae Spears, Kadeem. He's one of my favorite running backs. I was worried about the knee coming into the NFL. I thought the Titans did a really good job of using him as a bit of a change of pace back with Derrick Henry, and now that Derrick Henry's gone, let's see what he can do this year. That's my take on Tyjae Spears. Big fan, big Green Wave fan. Go Green Wave. Hope you're doing all right. That's all I got for you. All right, Sean, back to the topic at hand.
Did you hear about the controversy Tulane found itself in terms of college football this past week or 2 weeks ago, I think it was?
No.
They tweeted something out. They tweeted a graphic out of like home of the cheapest beer in college football, and then that like set off a firestorm. BYU even got involved, and they tweeted like home of the cheapest chocolate milk in college football.
There it is. I was gonna say they don't drink out there.
Because it was actually like apparently your favorite college of all time, not named Kent State, Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns. They apparently really do have the cheapest beer in college football, and they took a slight that Tulane was trying to claim that they did. Anyway, I just
I would like the info from Kadeem as we progress through this podcast. What was the nexus of that? Because he works in that department. I think he works with the people that tweeted that graphic out. So I want to know, where did that come from? Was that a marketing ploy trying to get into the conversation there, Green Wave?
Maybe how much?
I'm curious.
Apparently at Louisiana Lafayette, you can get I think it's Natty Light for $2 at their stadium.
Well,
that's even cheaper. That's even cheaper. Yeah, that's even cheaper than what we could get back at Kent State, and that was 10 years ago at this point, and they were $4.
Football stadiums to offer beer, though.
We were. I did that story, and I got an A in it in broadcast beat reporting. But I digress. Back to Austria we go, to the Styrian Mountains, where Austria, does it never not deliver?
No. I think it's valid to say that it never does. It always delivers.
It's a great track. It's I think it's the third shortest track on the calendar. Like 40% of it is spent, with the DRS Open. It has 3 DRS zones, and a lot of those corners, you can even take them flat out. Like, it is a great track for racing. There's great opportunities for overtaking. I've always said it's one of my favorite tracks. It's definitely like top 5, if not top 3. Love the Red Bull Ring. That being said,
I'm running it through my head, Sean, right now. I'm thinking about the flat out corners, and
you've got that one
sector 2 with the
definitely has that left. Yep. Yeah. With where the Orange Army always sits
on the right, then you go to the left, and then into sector 3 when you have the last 2 turns. You can't quite take it flat out. You have to let off, but as soon as you near the apex, you can punch it. And then that's why the track limits thing in the gravel was installed. Not to divert you again, but just one more chat participant here. This is our guy Logan chiming in. He says, the ability to shift from F1 timing to Tyjae Spears in an instant is why I tune in. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's just the expertise we bring to the Gridiron podcast. And as always, I would be remiss. You can join in the chat like Logan just did. You can also hit us up on email. Nick, we do have an email now. It's the Gridiron Podcast 3 at gmail.com. Damn those other 2. But
Sean,
it is
would
the
you
Gridiron
like to say
Podcast
that?
number 3 at gmail.com.
There it is right there on the lower third. I typed it out in time. Make sure you send us your complaints.
Yep.
Complaints go in the complaint card, but they're all read and understood. And some of them are taken more seriously than others based on the nature of the complaint. If you have good words to say, do that. If you just want to, just don't fish us. We don't need a fishing attack.
Yeah. Please don't pretend to be like the Prince of Namibia offering us $100 million, but we have to send you 20 gift cards from Amazon in our social security number. And if you want to leave us a voice note, that'd be great too. We'd love to play those out on the podcast as well. Try and keep them PG-13, I'd say.
Yeah.
So like one cuss word, just one.
Yeah.
Just one. Everybody gets one.
Per show. Yeah.
Everybody gets one. Anyway, as I keep saying, back to Austria. Let's go back to Austria. Great race that ultimately ended in a George Russell win, just his second win ever. First win for Mercedes this season, and now all of the top 4 teams, that being Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes, have won a race this season. The season, we all thought it was going to be just Max Verstappen dominating, but he still is, but not quite to the level that we thought. Actually, not even nearly to the level we thought. We thought he'd win like 21 out of 23 races. He has 5 Or no, he has, I'm doing quick math. That was number 10. So he has 6 wins.
That was
out
number
of 10
11.
races. He has 7 wins out of 11 races.
You do this
still not
week,
bad
every week.
I do.
Is it race 9? No, it was race 10. You know, that tells me, Sean, you don't watch the intro to the broadcast. You don't listen to David Croft or whoever it might be saying they go around the globe from race to race, and then they finally land on where the current race is. And that's it says race number. Race 10 was Barcelona. And that's the only reason I ever know. So maybe someday you'll follow through.
The only reason I ever know is because you keep me on my toes, Nick. Anyway, the race culminated in a George Russell win, and he only won because the battle at the front for most of the race was Max Verstappen v. Lando Norris for what feels like the 100th time in the past 100 races. It didn't quite go the way we all thought it would, though, because the quicker car at the end was clearly Lando Norris. All he had to do was pass Max Verstappen. Lando, however, did get a penalty for track limits. Those pesky track limits came back to get Lando. He had a 5-second time penalty, but the feeling was if he could get past Max, he had the pace to build up a 5 or more second gap, and he would secure his second ever win and second of the season. Oh, but old Max Verstappen had different ideas going into turn 3. Now, Max had been called out by Lando for moving under braking 3 times leading up to the incident that I'm about to describe. Now, for you newbies, moving under braking, that's a big no-no. It's dangerous, right? You have to show where you're going, then you start to brake, and then as soon as you start to move under braking, well, then you're just asking to cause a collision. It's very dangerous, and it's a very big no-no. It's kind of, if you're not from the U.S., we have a saying here. It's called, that's Bush League, and that means essentially that's bullshit. Anyway, Max did it 3 times. Lando called him out for it, and the 4th time is one that nearly ended both their races and did end Lando Norris's race, where Max Verstappen just listed lazily to the left heading into turn 3, clipped Lando Norris because he did not give him a full car's width on the track. Both suffered punctures. Lando's was worse, and Lando got taken out of the race, and Max went on to finish P5, even after he was given a 10-second time penalty. I will give Max credit for this. Max got punctured, completed a full lap with a punctured tire, did a pit stop, got a 10-second time penalty, and still finished ahead of his teammate, Sergio Perez. So kudos to Max for that. But, yeah, I don't know the insult that I want to give, but darn to Max for ending Lando's race because that move was Bush League. Tell me I'm wrong.
Sergio Perez, who got stuck behind a Haas and couldn't get around a Haas in Austria at the Red Bull Ring. That just tells you everything you need to know about him.
He got in front of Nico Hülkenberg, and then Nico Hülkenberg took the place right back again with a Haas.
Point exactly. I mean, you're losing battles to a Haas. You're
on the 4th of July weekend. Haas. We'll talk more about them in a second. But
America's team.
Back to the Norris v. Verstappen incident. You are a Max Verstappen fan. I'm a Lando Norris fan, but I have a feeling that we're on the same page for this one, Nick.
Yeah. So to recap, Sean and I were texting in the group, violating Katie's request to not speak about the race live unless everybody's confirmed to be live.
Sorry, Katie.
Sorry. We're sorry.
We're sorry.
We suck. We're
sorry.
Just a couple of guys who don't listen to your wants and needs. We suck. And Sean texted, I'm watching it. It's back and forth. Lando's putting the pressure on Max. Lando's dive bombing a couple times. He forces Max wide on the 3rd dive bomb. It's getting intense. You can tell they keep doing this. Somebody's going to hit somebody. And Sean texts and says, "Are we all live right now?" And I just snarkily reply, "Of course you'd send this now when this is getting interesting." And then on the next lap, as soon as I sent that reply, Lando decides, I'm not going to try to go inside again. For the 4th time, I'm going to go outside. And Max, watching him in his mirrors, tries to block the outside. And then at the last second, which I guess telemetry shows that he brakes after he moves, but I don't know. I'm not going to dive into those weeds. He tries to squeeze Lando, who's facing track limits. He's already got a black and white flag, so he's on the edge. And he's trying to squeeze him off the track to get those track limits.
He had already gotten the 5-second penalty after that. He was trying to force him off again.
Oh, okay. So he tries to squeeze him off. Phrasing. And that ends up being what ends both their races. Lando obviously not giving in and being forced off the track and makes contact with Max's rear tire, causing an immediate puncture of Max's tire. Lando gets a puncture as a result as well. They both limp back to the pits. Max gets his tire changed and gets out in time because of how far ahead they were the rest of the field to be able to still fight through a little bit of traffic and finish P5. Whereas, Lando's race ended right there because the puncture that was caused to Max's tire was caused by Lando's front wing. And by the time they tried to replace the wing, they realized there was so much damage to the car. Lando himself said, retire the car. It's over. I'm not going to be able to get out there and get points still. Or at least he just was resigned to the fact that he had lost his chance to win the race. And on first blush, I thought that was Lando getting impatient and causing contact because every camera angle, Sean, I'm sure you agree with me on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's every camera angle tells a different story, but the overhead camera angle shows what really happened, which is that Max again moves basically under the period that would be under braking. Whether he was braking or not, it's the range in which you would be braking. And that is where Lando did not give in and move as well. And that's what caused the crash was Max trying to squeeze him off the track.
The exact text from Nick was, ha 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 ha, that's your king. Trying to, stick it to me because he thought Lando caused a collision. When in fact, not. Let's see. 2 minutes.
Well, then
later,
we got to look at all the replays after. Yeah.
2 minutes later, Nick texts back goes, "Yeah, that's on Max."
Yeah, it is. It was on Max for trying to squeeze him off the track. It's hard racing, but it's also the narrative that everybody is riding since then is Max hasn't changed since 2021 when he used to get in these battles with Lewis Hamilton and they caused multiple wrecks and everything else. And I would agree to a degree because I think that Max doesn't know. He's like Ricky Bobby. In fact, I have a lower third. Max equals Ricky Bobby because if you ain't first, you're last, and he doesn't care. Like he's not going to give in no matter what. That's who he's been since he came into F1 as a rookie. He's always been that type of hard racer, and we haven't seen it from him in a long time because he hasn't been challenged, and now he's finally being challenged. And it's almost like he's got to dust off the old skills of how to actually battle on track, and we've learned that he's not the cleanest battler. The reason I reacted initially, Sean, like it was Lando's fault is because we've talked about this at length in the podcast. Lando is not used to fighting at the front of the pack. Lando doesn't quite have the polish that you need in these instances. And that's why I said he might be a bit of a choke artist because of the way he's failed, when he's won pole to take advantage of that. And in certain situations, he just hasn't come out on top. He hasn't won these battles. He doesn't have the Lewis Hamilton racecraft in him yet because he's still pretty young and he's just not used to it. So on my first reaction, I was like, well, there's Lando not knowing how to battle again. And then I saw the replay and, oh, there's Max. That's the old Max we knew, who we also haven't seen battle in a long time. So yeah, it's on Max. I'm not going to go so far as to say like, oh, he's dirty. He's just somebody that doesn't know how to race. It's just that the competitor in him, he doesn't know how to tone it down and he doesn't know how to do it cleanly. And I think that, they had like 5 attempts in the same turn, which is turn 3, the uphill turn at Austria, the hard right. And the Lando dive bombs, I think, made Max frustrated after a while, especially the one that pushed him off the track. And I think it was a bit of like, you're going to have to take this from me. I'm not going to make it easy. And he ended up causing a collision. And obviously it's his fault. And it sucks for both of them because Lando didn't get anything out of it. But I also kind of look at it as like, there's Lando again, not taking advantage of an opportunity. Like P2 points is still pretty good, man.
No. You even said at the beginning of the season, when you are a winner, you want every single win. You want every single point that you can get. You were talking about
at what cost? At what cost?
At this point, you can see Lando isn't satisfied with P2 anymore. When the win is there, he's going for it. And I think that shows you kind of a change in mentality for Lando Norris. To your point, you're right. Max doesn't know how to do it cleanly. That's always been a knock on him, even when you want to go back to 2021. Max, while Lando was complaining that Max was braking under pressure or moving under braking, Max was also complaining that Lando was trying to push him off the track and dive bombing him.
Which he did once.
Hot meet kettle. For the love of God, let's just go back. Let's just open the book on Max Verstappen going all the way back to like 2016 when he started in this sport. Sir, that's your signature move. They even made a rule about it because you kept doing it. Like, it's the Max Verstappen rule. And that ain't a good thing to have on your resume. And I used the phrase Bush League earlier purposely because it was Bush League. And it's unbecoming of a 3-time asterisk world champion in Max Verstappen. At this point, I know you haven't had to battle at the front for a long time. You did, in 2022 with Charles for like first 6 or 7 races with Ferrari. And those were pretty clean races. those were pretty entertaining races, and he did so cleanly. He hasn't had to do that in about 2.5 years now, and now we're starting to see the old Max come out. It's just one race. Now, for the sake of this sport, oh man, do I love this now. Because we had the Max v. Lewis rivalry, right? We have guys that everyone keeps saying, oh, they're the best of friends. They're buddies. We knew this was going to happen. Nobody stays best friends when you're fighting each other for a championship. It's just not going to happen. Now the gloves have officially been dropped. Lando's looking at Max going, okay, now I know. Now I know. You want to know when I know? It's now, because now I know.
Nice. Thank you for that clarification. Let me present this alternative view on this. And we saw this happen with Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz in the same race. If you're Lando and you get the run up the hill on Max with DRS, why not strategically position yourself, or at least attempt to get a better exit out of turn 3, because there's another DRS zone right in front of you, and overtake
I think that's
there.
I think that's what Lando was doing there that fourth time he was going for it. Because he took the outside line, and I think he was going to try and go for the undercut and then just go straight past him. So I think that's what he was doing on that attempt, and I think Max saw that, and he, again, listed to the left, or just moved over to the left, thinking either he's going to make Lando go off track and then incur another 5-second time penalty, or he's just, I don't know really what he was thinking, because even when Max got to the apex, he just kept going straight. Like, would he have ever turned his car, or if he have just kept going straight and pushed them both into the wall?
That's the thing.
I say that jokingly.
I think Lando would have overtaken him at that point.
I say that jokingly, but at the same time, you watch it back, and from the camera angle at the top of the hill, when Lando started to turn in, Max did turn, and he was almost at the top. He was almost at the curb. So when
he put
was
himself
he
in
going
no
to turn
man's
in
land
ever? He really did. I mean, like, again, this was Max's fault. Everybody, aside from Red Bull, has agreed this is Max's fault. Whether you're a pundit, you're a journalist, you're the other drivers, everyone agrees that's Max's fault. He should have been doing that. That's a darn shame. Fortunately for George Russell, he was there to, clean up the garbage and sail to an easy victory, his second ever. I mean, it's the old saying, to finish first you must finish. George Russell was right there.
As you said on the radio, pick up the pieces. Happy to pick up the pieces of some carnage that happened in front of him. Can we talk for just a second about Toto not remembering what it's like to maybe win a race and immediately getting on the radio while George is going into a braking zone? George, you can win this thing. You can win this.
You can win this, George. George, you can win this. And the response from George Russell was perfect. Was, let me effing drive. Perfect. Mwah. It's like a son who's finally old enough to tell his dad to shut the F up. It's like, just let me do this, man. Just let me do this. Oscar Piastri came home P2, so McLaren did salvage some good points, followed by Carlos Sainz in P3. What was George's quote on the radio afterwards? Wasn't it like, yippee, yabba dabba doo?
Yabba dabba doo.
He
added to the list.
He literally said yabba dabba doo, a la Fred Flintstone. George Russell, ladies and gentlemen, you'll never find a more British man than him. Speaking of, we now head into Silverstone this upcoming week, and you have to think that everyone at Silverstone is just going to be, whether they're a Lewis fan, whether they're a George fan, whether they're an Alex Albon fan, it doesn't matter. They're going to be cheering for Lando Norris, knowing what he has the opportunity to do and what he has the opportunity to do coming back from this.
Yeah, I mean, the stakes are raised. The drama has intensified. It's going to be a great year for Drive to Survive at this point in the season. This is when everything gets really interesting. This is what we've kind of been building to, even on the podcast. Like, it's going to get fun. It's going to get fun because Red Bull's not dominant anymore. The one thing I felt walking away from the Austrian GP was, damn, I wish Lewis didn't have a damaged car, because Lewis is a better driver than George Russell. Like, George Russell wins because the two cars in front of him wreck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it should have been Lewis's win. That hurts.
Yeah. Like, I still think Lewis is, the points aren't there, but the eye test is, I still think Lewis is the better driver.
Oh, for sure. That's unquestioned. Like, George still lacks.
No, some people are questioning it, and I don't know why they are.
Oh, piss off. Go enjoy your freaking docu-series that drives up the drama, and don't actually use your eyes. Look, man, the guy's got 7 championships.
Let's get back to one more thing about the Austrian Grand Prix, because while everyone is focusing on the battle between Lando and Max or George Russell getting his second ever win, Haas, man, you got to give Haas some flowers. Haas finishes in the points, not once, but twice, sandwich betwixt a Red Bull. Actually sandwiched betwixt 2 Red Bulls, because it went Red Bull Haas, 5 through 8.
No, it went Red Bull Haas, V-Carb. Oh, no, sorry, you're right. Red Bull Haas. Then there's a V-Carb.
Yeah, it was 6 and 8. Yeah, it was 6 and 8.
I was reading.
So Nico Hülkenberg finishing P5. He gets overtaken by Sergio Perez on the penultimate lap, I believe, or was it the last lap? I believe it was the last lap. And immediately just uses that DRS to reactivate, and he goes right around Sergio again. So great move by Nico Hülkenberg. Definitely proves that, while his record of most races without ever standing on the podium continues, he is still a formidable F1 driver and well worth the contract that Kick Sauber Audi stake fuck all is paying him next year. It's PG-13. Everyone gets one. And so good points for Haas. It was fun to see them fighting up there. And that car it's been decent the past couple of races.
No, I gotta stop you there. No? Everybody appreciate this moment in time.
It's been, hey man, Canada, Kevin Magnussen was up in P4 for a second.
Yeah, because the Haas is a good mutter for years. We're not gonna see this again. Come on. It took Max, and Lando, okay, so Kevin Magnussen finishes P9 if Lando's still in the race. Okay, so you're still double points, but I would not bank on this happening again. Now, not with Kevin Magnussen. With Nico Hülkenberg, I could see him finishing in the bottom half of the points semi-consistently, but you also have to consider Charles Leclerc finished P11. He's been on a really unfortunate string of bad luck for the last few races ever since he won at Monaco. There were some anomalies that had kind of opened the door for them, and Nico Hülkenberg had a great race, and Magnussen, decent race. Good enough to finish P8, but it was kind of a weird race where it was the door is open for you to sneak into the points here. A la Daniel Ricciardo starts P11, finishes P9. Pierre Gasly gets up into 10th, which is another thing I would like to talk about here in a second. So I don't think you see it often. Please. I'm not getting on the Haas train as hey, midfield team, woo! No, they think they still suck for the most part, but good for them, man. Sean, I don't know if you've ever seen a shooting star in your life. I've seen a few in my time, but every time I see one, I stop and I appreciate it because I think I'm never going to see this again in this exact moment here. It's just something that it's like a comet. Passes and it's not going to come around for another 367 years.
Double points for an F1 team.
Haley's Comet, Haas's Comet.
You just think of that?
Yeah, I did. Let's turn to the chat real quick before we transition. We've got Logan chiming in again. He has a question for you, Sean, McLaren expert. Norris seems to come on strong at the end of every race, often too late. Why can't the McLaren come to life earlier? Car or driver problem? I would add a third element in here, Logan. Strategy problem has also been an issue.
Yeah.
Sean, take it away.
That was going to be my answer is McLaren are not terrific on the strategy. They have never been, but also you're right. That car just does come to life later in races. It always has. I don't know what the issue is. It probably, in my opinion, just performs better lighter, right? Less fuel tire degradation. Yeah. It just performs better when it doesn't suffer from tire deg nearly as much as any other car. Really well. They really do. And even when they're not managing their tires, that car can still race. We saw, he was taking 0.7 of a second off per lap against Max in the third stint. But you're right. I think it's just a lighter car, I would say. So that'd be my guess. Low fuel, and then it can just kind of fly. We used to have, last lap Lando a couple of years ago. What was the mode? Mode 7, engine mode 7 or something like that. And they got rid of that. They outlawed that. But at the same time, you're right. The McLaren does just come to life in that, third stint.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. That's a good take on it. I think that's probably the best explanation. It's not because Oscar Piastri struggles to manage his tires. So we see both sides of that sword, I guess. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think you're right. There's just something about that car that's a great finisher. Except for the fact that the driver driving it has not been able to finish it off right, except for one time in Miami. I think that Canadian moment when Lando comes out of the pits and hits a wet spot and Max goes right around him, that one's going to sit in the back of my head for a while when I look at McLaren and their potential, just because I think that they probably could have won that race too. But sometimes, you win out on strategy, and I think McLaren still has a little bit of figuring out to do. in that regard. Let's go back to the chat real quick. We got Big B chiming in. He says, boys night, the Shook and Sean pod. It was the Sean and Shook pod, but that works. And he said, can we get Sean's cuss corner next week? Just bleep it all.
No. This is a family podcast, and I have a job that I'm not allowed to cuss at, so I shouldn't be cussing here. But everyone gets one. We're a PG-13 pod.
Oh, welcome into the new segment here on the Gridiron Pod, Bitchin' with Barie, where he complains and uses as many vulgar statements as possible.
There's your one, Nick. There's your one.
That's my one. I used it wisely. All right.
Everybody gets one.
Transition. Here we go. Sean.
We talking French Civil War now?
I would love to get an update on the French Civil War because Alpine, believe it or not, donkey of a car, tractor of a car in Bahrain to start the year, fire the whole technical staff. Turns out sometimes firing everybody actually works. They're kind of all right now. We look at the results from this past week, and we got Pierre Gasly finishing P10 and Esteban Ocon, P12. Not bad. Not too bad. They're hanging around a little bit. What do you think, Sean?
I think that the FIA and F1 should mandate that every time Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly are lining up next to each other, or even come within like a couple of seconds of one another on track, they should open their radios so they can talk to one another in English, because those insults would be amazing. It seems like these two just find each other on track. Like they're opposites, magnets, but opposites attract, and they just find each other and have just an epic sphincter tightening battle every single race where, oh yeah, because if their team's watching from the pit wall, all they can think is do not crash into one another again. And since Monaco, they haven't, knock on wood, but yeah, this was just another example of how these two race each other extremely hard and just kind of go at extreme lengths to beat one another. It's very clear they don't like each other. They're not good teammates. It's obviously coming to an end after this season with Esteban Ocon being dropped, but it is fun to watch it while it happens.
It's fun when they're not at the back of the field too. When they're in the middle of the field, it's like, oh,
and fighting for points. Yeah,
this kind of matters. This could actually ruin their chance of earning some points here. Like, okay, stakes are raised. All right. Plus, look, I just want to pat myself on the shoulder here a little bit of pat on the back. Go around so I don't hit the mic. Those of you, by the way, you can watch us on YouTube, live on Twitter. You can see us on Twitch live and also on replay. Check us out. Give us a follow, 5-star review.
Like, subscribe, and listen.
Last week, was it last week? Last show, we talked about Carlos Sainz and how he's holding up silly season and where he might go. And I tossed out Alpine as a possibility, and I was just absolutely crapped on by you and Katie. Because you guys are all Williams. Go to Williams. The cars that finish in the back. Go to Williams. That's a better place for you to go. Why not put him in an Alpine? Maybe he ends up fighting for like P8 every once in a while. Who knows?
Still go to Williams.
Yeah.
Just every time they take the halo camera angle from an Alpine car, do you ever realize just how weird that car sounds?
Yeah.
Like every other car sounds like an F1 car, and that car sounds like a Prius.
I think that's that kind of actually points to the fact that they may not be a works team anymore. They might actually find an engine supplier somewhere else, which is hilarious because they're literally named after the sporting brand of Renault.
and they are the only team that uses Renault engines because every other team's been like, yeah, your engines suck.
Yeah, reliability not good. Red Bull and a bunch of other teams have learned that over the past. Like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be a works team anymore. Why don't you get your supplier from somewhere else? Cut it down. The fact that Red Bull, still working in tandem with Honda, has developed a superior engine to yours tells you everything you need to know. Lighten the cost load here.
I would love I love this about IndyCar, and if Logan's still listening, he can back me up on this. You have two options in IndyCar. You have Chevy and you have Honda, and neither Chevy nor Honda have an IndyCar team. They are just engine suppliers. So I like that. Every single team is like, hey, you have your pick. Do you want to be Chevy or do you want to be Honda? NASCAR kind of similar too. You have Ford, you have Toyota, you have Chevy. I like that aspect of those models of racing because you don't have a customer team and a works team, right? That's why everyone's like, oh my God, McLaren is better than the works team because they have a Mercedes engine. Well, that's automatically saying if you are an engine supplier that you should be one of the top 2-3 teams on the grid. I don't like that. So I don't know how we can fix that, but at the same time, because Ferrari's going to want to make their engines, Mercedes is going to want to make theirs, and then Red Bull is going to want to work with Honda to make theirs. Maybe Honda just makes everyone's engines. I don't know. Maybe we have Honda and Ford since they don't have teams at the moment. Do that.
That'd be fun.
I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, I'm saying you clearly are spitballing. Regardless,
Chevy, come on in. Toyota, how about you?
It is fun. It's fun to see Alpine resurrect themselves from a doomed team to start the season to something that's mildly interesting. Mildly interesting is the bar you got to clear. In fact, you don't even have to be that sometimes. We talk about Valtteri Bottas all the time on here, and all he does is take nude photos. I mean, his team sucks. Not his fault, but his car sucks. And yet we still get a mention for him every once in a while, pretty much every show. So all you got to do is be mildly interesting, and we're going to put you on the gridiron pod.
Nick, do you remember your podium predictions from last week? You didn't write them down.
I did write them down. Or not. I guess they got deleted. I thought I filled this in for once. It was Max 1, Lewis 2, and I think Lando 3. I may have written it in Katie's space because Katie went Max, Lewis, Oscar, Piastri. I did not go Oscar. So I think I went Max 1, Lewis 2, Lando 3. So big swing and a miss for your boy.
I had Lando 1, Max 2, and Lewis 3. 0 for 3 on that, but at the same time, I could have at least been 2 for 3 had Max Verstappen not listed lazily to the left on turn 3. But we'll never know.
I would like to use this podcast as a reference point going forward because we are at the end of a triple header this weekend going to Silverstone, where McLaren famously debuted some upgrades that made them a legitimate team again last year. Lando finished P2, and that was a great success. And now P2 to Lando is not enough. This is our reference point because they are going to scrap again. This is not the last we've seen of this battle.
Ooh.
So remember what we've talked about here.
Another 12 races.
Remember what we talked about here, because if Max is not at fault next time, I will be dropping the hammer on you.
That's fine. He's not going to be at fault every time. Lando is also going to be at fault, just as Lewis was sometimes at fault in 2021. Lewis got a time penalty for the incident at Copse Corner at this very race that we're going into that sent Max flying into a barrier at 51 Gs. Maybe Lando finds himself on the inside of Copse. Maybe he tries to make a pass on the inside there.
It says something about the resiliency of the human body at that age that you can take an impact at 51 Gs and just be okay.
I'm sure he felt it the next day. I'm sure he felt it the next day. But yeah, that was a heck of a crash. No, I'm looking forward to the scraps, and I'm fine if Lando decides to throw a couple punches as well, because this is turning into a heavyweight fight, and it's one we're going to have for next year and years to come. It is now Lando v. Max.
Let's go to the constructor standings real quick. We have Red Bull at 355 in first place. Ferrari at 291 in second place, sneaky. McLaren at 268 in third place. Mercedes at 196. Mercedes not really going to catch up to Red Bull, but that's kind of an interesting 14 battle in the constructor standings, and that's better than I thought we anticipated we would get this season. Meanwhile, Max at 237, Lando at 156. Man, no points there really sucks for him.
It does, yeah.
Charles Leclerc at 150 despite having 3 straight clunkers. Carlos Sainz at 135. Sean, I got to say, Charles won at Monaco. Everything was cool. And since then, he's been a non-factor. And Carlos looks like the better driver again. They battled. They battled in Barcelona.
It's possible. The other thing, too, is Ferrari were kind of that. They started the season as definitely the second best team. And since then, they've had their own upgrades. And since Monaco, it's kind of been like, we've seen McLaren continue to just make strides and is probably at times the fastest car in the standings right now. It may be the best overall car in the standings. It may be. But then Mercedes has now made a huge leap, and they are now joining that fight. This was a season we kind of were ready to just toss out before it even started, and we're getting an all-time great F1 season just in terms of just the level playing field that we're seeing right now.
I'm really worried about 2025. I don't worry about the future that much.
You mean 2026?
No, 2025. I don't worry about the future that much, even though I do, because I'm a planner. But when Lewis Hamilton trades in the Mercedes for that Ferrari red and gets in a car that may be worse than Mercedes, that will really suck.
But how much worse?
I don't know.
Like
right
how much
now,
worse? Like how different are these cars going to be this year compared to next year with everyone focusing on 2026 with the new regulations? I think as good as this season is, I'm hoping and praying that because everyone's looking forward to 2026, next season could be even more epic.
Yeah. And though epic is a term that's often overused at this point in history, I would agree. I just worry. I just want Lewis to go out in the right way.
Nick worries.
I do.
Oh, you want him to have
my
an
grandma
world title?
worries. When my grandma worries, she pulls at her
Nick,
neck, you know?
oh, did you want Lewis to have his 8th world title? Is that it?
Yeah.
He should already have one.
Yeah, he doesn't though. So you know what? I don't cry over spilled milk. I just clean it up.
That probably sounded so much harder in your head. Like you thought you dropped bars. You in fact did not.
Bars. But I'm not a rapper. Let's get to Silverstone predictions.
I'll let you start. Ladies first.
Shout out to Katie. Wish you were here. Silverstone. I don't believe in Lando to get the job done unless they win on strategy, and they haven't won it yet. Okay. Let's get crazy. Lewis Hamilton P1, Max Verstappen P2, Lando Norris P3.
That'd be great. I know the crowd would love that. I'm going with the same exact podium that I predicted in Austria. I'm going Lando P1, Max Verstappen P2, and Lewis Hamilton P3. The gloves are off, and Lando is going home. That image that we had in 2021 of Lewis Hamilton in his car with the Union Jack driving around the infield, getting out of his car and waving to the fans. That's going to be Lando come Sunday afternoon.
Standing in the red corner.
I really believe that. Gloves are officially off. Lando now knows what to expect. I don't think he honestly, and this probably says something about Lando, either as a driver or a person. I don't think he expected Max to go that far. I really don't. I think he was like, he's my buddy. We're good. You know, we're going to have a tough but fair fight. Nah. And Max was like, nope.
Nah, man.
No, we're not. I'm still Max
Verstappen. With competitors, man. That's the thing with competitors. And it doesn't matter if you're friends. In fact, you want to beat your friends more.
Exactly. And hey, it was a tough lesson for Lando to learn, but I think he's learned it. So you go into this race now thinking, okay, if that's the way we're going to play it, fine. But I can also play that way.
All right. This has been a quick pod, but I think we're on our last segment of the day, sir.
Yeah. Hate it or love it, Nick. Do we even want to do this week?
What do I hate? Everything.
Everything.
What do I love? Nothing.
This is the sad boy summer for all three of us, honestly. And I'm trying to go to a concert actually in a couple of weeks over in Clearwater, and I think it's called like the Sad Summer Tour. I'm like, that's perfect.
Once at one time we all looked at Saturday as Saturday. Now every day is Saturday.
Every day is sad.
What do I hate? God. Okay, I got one for you. Yep. I hate. This kind of falls in line with what Katie said last week. She hates like robocalls, like robot operators, like just trying to get through the menu. I hate dealing with utility companies. I found out that the house, the house when it was constructed, they assigned the wrong address to the plot. Had to get that changed to the county. I went through like 9 steps just to get a damn water bill. I did this in April, and they're like, "All right, you're set up. You're gonna get your first bill at the end of April."
I remember
July. It's July 1st, Sean. The water's still on, and I still haven't gotten a bill. And I'm cool with getting free water and everything, but at the same time, I'm freaking out because, like, at this point, we're looking at like a 14-month overdue water bill. Either they're charging it to me and they're not sending paper copies. I don't know what the hell is going on. And in order to figure it out, I have to get back on the phone and wait on hold for an hour and a half with some fire hold music that also gets really old after about 30 minutes. Not looking forward to that. Hate trying to get on the phone or get in contact with a mortgage company when you try to get your tax abated property to reflect properly in escrow, and instead your mortgage payment goes up by nearly 50% over 1 month to the next because they charged you too much in taxes when you're supposed to be abated. I hate dealing with companies like this. Make it easier. Just send me to the operator. I want to talk to a human. I don't care where they're located. I can't do this robot stuff anymore. So I'm right there with you, Katie. That's my hate.
You know, that happened to me a couple months ago when I didn't, I couldn't get a new car registration because like I had some sort of like overdue charge. I'm like, why do I have an overdue charge? Like I didn't get any tickets. I've paid all my tolls and stuff like that. Like, apparently I didn't pay one toll, and then when I eventually paid it off, they'd already charged me like an overdue fee, but that didn't go on my toll notice. That went to a separate account, and so they're like, you have an outstanding balance. I'm like, with who? They're like, oh, with the Tampa Highway Expressway Authority. I'm like, okay, but isn't that like attached to my toll collection? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, who does that? They're like, the Tampa Highway. I'm like, I get that. So I finally call them, and they're like, oh yeah, you have a $25 balance. I'm like, oh, is that it? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. This seems like a lot for nothing. It was very
that happened to me. I got a letter from the state of Ohio this week.
Like, thankfully, I didn't get pulled over with expired tags because I was like, they were like expired for like a month.
You have remaining tax balance from your state income tax that has not been paid, even though I took my taxes to somebody to do them so that I avoid these things. $27. Not a big deal. How did you miss $27 when I was paid up? What the hell is going on? Why do people screw up in so many different areas when it comes to keeping records? Be better.
You know what? I think my hate is going to be related to that, Nick, because for the first time ever, there are several, key moments in anyone's life where you go, okay, now I'm an adult, right? I'm 18. I can drive. I can smoke, right? I'm 21. I can legally drink. I can go out with my friends. I'm 25. I can rent a car. I'm 32, and I didn't get a tax return this year. I owe money. For the first time ever in my life, I owe the government money.
Welcome to the club, buddy. I've been paying taxes back for years.
Yeah, no, this is the first time it's ever happened for me. I usually get like a nice, couple $100 at least. It's like, oh, it's nice little June present or May, whenever I get my tax returns back. And nope, I owe money, $97. And it's kind of hit the. I know it's nothing. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, like. I was really hoping, like Uncle Sam was gonna be like, "Hey, here's a nice $900 for you, sir." Like, oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
I'll go spend this on something nice. Thank you.
Yeah, here's a Jordans.
Just wait till you work in a municipality that your employer is not registered to take income tax on the city level from. Now, as you know, I work for the NFL. There's an NFL franchise in the city of Cleveland, and yet the NFL is not registered to take out city income tax or residency tax from the city of Cleveland, which means every year I have to put aside money in anticipation for that city income tax. Filing that is a pain in the ass, by the way. You have to do it by paper. You have to do your own numbers. Even after they send you an estimate, it sucks because they don't take it out of your paycheck. So just wait till you get there, Sean. Let's go to love. I have two quick loves. One, volleyball season ended today. My team's not very good, but we tried hard, and it's fun to play volleyball in the sand, and I had a blast, and so I love that. It was nice to get out there and play again. The weather was perfect along Lake Erie. It's at Wendy Park, Whiskey Island, right along the lake. It's very picturesque, so I love doing that and look forward to playing more sports. Sean looks up at the ceiling. He's very bored at this point. And now, my other love, you and Katie, for doing this podcast. It's been a trying year, and this has always been an escape and very fulfilling. And we are slowly but surely growing a little bit. And I love the listeners and the viewers that tune in, our small but loyal fan base that tunes in from both the US and the UK. Those are our top two countries. According to the analytics right now, we are getting consistent plays. People are showing up. Tell your friends about the Gridiron Pod. Spread the word. We are not going anywhere, even if we do this for free and it costs me $41 a month. Keep telling everybody about this podcast. I love you all for listening, and I love you and Katie for doing this with me, because it's
at this point it is a labor of love, because we generally do enjoy doing this, because like Nick said, it's an escape for us every Monday or Tuesday night, just to kind of get together, hang out. We all like to have a beer or a glass of wine while we do this, and it's a fun time. I don't know how I top that love. So I don't think I will. I think we'll end the podcast there. This has been episode 38 of the Gridiron Podcast. Again, happy Canada Day. D''EH. See what I did there? Canada Day.
Oh, nice.
Thank you. Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe make a lower third. Or maybe don't.
No. Too late.
Yeah, okay.
The moment's passed.
For Nick Shook and Katie Caldwell, I am Sean Barie. And as always, folks, we'll be back next week after the British Grand Prix. There we go. Be sure to live life in the fast lane. Good night, Canada.
And also, on Canada Day, if you're going to go to Niagara Falls, don't go over it in a barrel.
Allons-y Nordiques.
Bye, everyone.